Have you ever had a moment where your hard work, your status, and your dignity were crushed in a single instant? A dignified woman, the CEO of a major company, walked into her neighborhood bank for a simple transaction. But the teller sitting across from her didn't look at her documents, didn't listen to her words. She saw only one thing, the color of her skin. The moment was humiliating. But what the teller never realized was that this was only a 5-minute story. 5 minutes later, her own chair, her job, and her arrogance would be gone. It was a bright morning. Sunlight spilled across the glass front of the bank, reflecting the busy street outside where cars rolled by and people walked briskly. Inside the bank, the air was cooler, controlled, and quiet. The faint glow of ceiling lights mingled with daylight, casting pale shadows on the polished floor. The soft tapping of keyboards blended with the occasional sound of printer, paper rolling out. A few people stood patiently in line, checking their phones, flipping through papers, or simply staring ahead. Tellers were busy behind their counters, their motions practiced and repetitive, as though each transaction was just another number, another file in a never-ending stack. The door swung open, and in walked a woman whose presence, though understated, who carried a weight few in the room could perceive. Her name was Suraya Harris. She was in her early 40s, her posture upright, her movements calm, yet purposeful. She wore a dark navy blue suit that fit her with tailored precision, paired with black heels that clicked softly against the tiled floor. A leather laptop bag rested against her shoulder, and her expression carried both calm authority and quiet warmth. She smiled faintly as she walked toward the counter, drawing no unusual attention at first. A few customers glanced at her, then returned to their business. To them, she was simply another client. What they did not know was that she was the chief executive officer of the city's largest technology company, a woman whose name commanded boardrooms, headlines and contracts worth millions. Behind the counter sat Kayla, a woman in her mid-40s with tired eyes, but a sharp edge etched permanently into her face. Her uniform, though neat, seemed stiff on her, and her expression carried arrogance rather than professionalism. She shuffled papers without looking up, her nails clicking against the desk as she sighed audibly at the line forming in front of her. Suraya reached her desk and greeted her with the same politeness she gave everyone she met. "Good morning," she said with a composed smile. "I'd like to withdraw some documents from my account." Kayla barely glanced at her. Her eyes flicked to Suraya's face, then downward, and immediately back to the papers she was shuffling. With a flat, dismissive tone, she replied, "You probably have the wrong paperwork. We don't process that account here." The words were casual but cutting. A couple of people in line raised their brows, sensing the unnecessary coldness in her tone. Suraya, maintaining her poise, slid the file across the counter. "This is the correct branch," she said calmly. "All my records are here." Kayla finally lifted her head. For the first time, she truly looked at Suraya. Her lips curled into the faintest smirk, unheavy with superiority, the kind of smirk that didn't hide judgment but flaunted it. She picked up the file, glanced at it briefly, then tossed it back onto the desk with an audible slap. "Sorry, we can't process this. Next!" Gasps rippled softly through the line. Customers exchanged confused looks. One man frowned, shaking his head slightly. Suraya paused, inhaling slowly before speaking again in her composed, steady tone. "Could you tell me exactly what the issue is? This is my personal account. All documents are up to date." Kayla leaned back in her chair, folding her arms with deliberate arrogance. Her eyes narrowed as she said, "Don't waste my time. People like you often bring messy paperwork." The venom in that phrase, "people like you," was unmistakable. The insult wasn't hidden between lines. It was carved openly into her tone. Several customers shifted uncomfortably. A woman near the back muttered under her breath, and a teenager raised his brows in disbelief. Suraya kept her composure. "Would you please call the manager?" she asked politely. Kayla rolled her eyes, exaggerating the gesture for everyone to see. "The manager is busy, and I told you. Go outside, fix your documents, and come back. Next customer, please." She waved her hand dismissively as if brushing Suraya off like dust. The atmosphere in the bank began to change. Whispers stirred like a current passing through the crowd. People sensed something deeper was unfolding, something beyond routine banking frustrations. Suraya's presence, her calm authority, her undeniable dignity, made it obvious she was not an ordinary client. Yet Kayla's hostility only grew, fueled by her own prejudice and false sense of power. Kayla's voice rose suddenly, sharp enough to slice through the quiet bank. "Why don't you understand? This bank doesn't serve everyone. We have standards." The words landed like poison, contaminating the room with their malice. A hush fell. A young student near the back whispered to his friend, "That's straight-up racism." An elderly man holding prayer beads in his wrinkled hands shook his head slowly, his voice soft but firm as he said aloud, "Daughter, this is wrong. Stop this talk." But Kayla ignored them. She slammed her palm against the desk, the thud echoing across the lobby. "I said this matter is closed. Next!" Suraya's chest rose and fell slowly as she drew in a breath. Her eyes flickered with pain, but beneath it, patience and resolve glimmered. She didn't shout. She didn't break. Instead, she let the silence linger before speaking softly but firmly. "Your behavior is being recorded. Think carefully. This will not remain hidden." A teenager near the middle of the line already had his phone raised, live streaming the entire exchange. The camera captured Kayla's sneer in sharp focus. Customers were no longer passive. They were witnesses. The murmurs grew louder. A woman with a baby balanced on her hip called out across the room, "This lady is speaking respectfully, and you keep insulting her. What law allows you to deny service based on skin color?" Another customer, a man in his 30s, stepped forward. His voice was steady but strong. "I know who she is. I've seen her company working with this bank. She's someone important. You don't even realize who you're talking to." Kayla threw her head back and laughed mockingly. "Oh, please. No important person waits in line at a bank. She's just pretending." Her words, intended to humiliate, only fueled the outrage. Gasps turned into open voices of disapproval. People weren't just watching, they were taking sides. The noise drew out the manager at last, a man in a grey suit who walked briskly to the counter. Kayla wasted no time twisting the narrative. "Sir, she's being difficult. I told her this paperwork doesn't work here." The manager frowned at Suraya, clearly siding with his employee without hesitation. "Ma'am, if there's a problem, please reapply outside. We don't want a scene here." Suraya's eyes narrowed slightly. Her voice was still calm but firm. "You're not hearing me. This isn't a simple mistake." But the manager cut her off, raising a hand impatiently. "This is my final word. Please leave." Shock rippled across the room. Customers cried out in disbelief. "This is wrong," someone shouted. "She hasn't done anything," another protested. But Suraya simply stepped back from the counter, her face composed, her expression unreadable, as though she were waiting for something greater to unfold. It happened a moment later. A junior staff member, no older than 23, hesitated, his voice trembling but audible as he spoke. "Do you people realize who this is? This is Suraya Harris, CEO of Harris Technologies." The name fell into the room like a spark into dry grass, igniting immediate reaction. Customers gasped, murmuring to one another. "She's the one who signed that multi-million-dollar contract with the bank last month," one whispered loudly enough for all to hear. Kayla's face drained of color. For the first time, fear cracked through her arrogance. Yet still, she clung to her false confidence. "So what? To me, all customers are equal," she said, forcing a smirk. But her voice faltered, her eyes betraying the storm inside her. Moments later, the regional director burst through the door. His eyes landed on Suraya, and his face fell instantly into shock and regret. He hurried forward, his tone laced with urgency and apology. "Ma'am, I deeply apologize. You should never have been treated like this." Suraya's gaze stayed steady, unyielding, as she looked at Kayla. "This happened in front of everyone. It's not just about me. It could happen to anyone she thinks is beneath her." The director's face hardened. He turned sharply to Kayla, his voice cold and final. "You've crossed the line." Kayla's mouth fell open. "This is all drama. She's making trouble on purpose." She spat, her voice tinged with panic. The director didn't flinch. His reply landed like a hammer. "Enough! Effective immediately. You're terminated." The words echoed through the bank, bouncing off walls heavy with tension. For a beat, there was silence. Then the crowd erupted in applause. The sound was overwhelming, a wave of justice echoing through the very place where dignity had been denied minutes earlier. A young man shouted above the clapping, "That's what she deserves." A woman cheered, holding her baby high as she nodded approvingly. The teenager's live stream captured every moment, broadcasting Kayla's downfall to countless viewers online. Kayla's pride shattered visibly. She stuffed her belongings into a small cardboard box with trembling hands. Papers slipped, pens clattered, and her once arrogant face crumpled with the weight of humiliation. Tears welled in her eyes as she turned, avoiding the stares, the whispers, the applause that wasn't for her. She walked out of the bank in silence, her steps heavy with defeat. Suraya stood silently, her poise intact. She hadn't raised her voice, hadn't lashed out, but justice had been served. In the eyes of everyone present, her dignity shone brighter than ever. She turned calmly to the director, who still stammered apologies, and said quietly, "Let this be a lesson, not just for her, but for this institution. Respect is not optional, it is owed." The applause swelled again, louder, fiercer, carrying the truth that arrogance built on prejudice will always crumble. And as Suraya walked out of the bank, the sun catching her confident stride, the story that began in humiliation ended in triumph, witnessed by all, remembered by many.